The warehouse smelled of oil, blood, and rust. Flickering fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the cracked concrete floor. Lieutenant Ava Hawk Ramirez, a decorated Navy SEAL, moved like a ghost through the half-lit corridor, her black tactical gear blending into the darkness. She'd been through enough covert ops to know that the silence was wrong, too wrong. This wasn't supposed to be chaos. It was meant to be a clean extraction, one operative in, one out. Her target, an undercover intelligence officer named Miles Carter, had gone dark inside a dockside smuggling compound that doubled as a weapons depot. The mission was classified even within her own unit, but when the order came through that Carter's tracking beacon had stopped transmitting, Ava volunteered before anyone else could blink. She owed him. 3 years ago, Carter had pulled her out of a burning Humvee in Kandahar, his hands bleeding, his lungs full of smoke. They hadn't seen each other since. But the memory still burned in her like shrapnel, and if he was in trouble, she wasn't going to wait for bureaucracy to catch up. The plan was simple. In through the west loading bay, out through the side dock. Minimal noise, minimal blood. But the moment her boots hit the warehouse floor, she felt the vibration through the ground, too heavy, too rhythmic. Footsteps. Her comms crackled once, then silence. Static. Her jaw tightened. Base, this is Hawk. I'm inside. Comms check. Nothing. Only the faint hum of generators. She pressed her back against a stack of shipping crates, listening. Somewhere in the distance, metal scraped against metal. The air smelled faintly of gasoline. She glanced up at the rafters. Cameras, several of them, red lights blinking. Damn it, they knew she was here. Her instinct screamed to pull back, but something deeper, something she couldn't explain, kept her moving forward. She edged toward the sound of voices. Through the narrow gap between containers, she saw them, 6 men in heavy jackets, all armed. 2 were talking near a bound figure slumped against a pillar. His head hung low, a dark stain spreading across his shirt. Miles. Ava exhaled, steadying her pulse. She moved fast, knife out, silenced pistol drawn. The first guard dropped before he could turn. The second managed to shout before a bullet hit him between the eyes. Chaos erupted. She sprinted toward Miles, ducking behind crates as gunfire tore through the air. Sparks showered from the walls as bullets struck metal. She fired twice, then again, dropping another man. Then, crack, something slammed into her from behind. The impact threw her forward, her weapon skidding across the floor. She rolled instinctively, trying to get her bearings, but another blow landed across her ribs, then another against her shoulder. Pain exploded through her side. She barely caught sight of the attacker, a giant, bald man with arms like steel cables and a jagged scar running down his cheek. He was holding a length of metal pipe, and in his eyes burned the cold amusement of a predator who'd finally cornered his prey. "Seal, huh," he sneered, swinging the pipe again. Ava blocked with her forearm, too slow. The metal connected with a wet crack. The sound echoed louder than her scream. Her right arm hung uselessly at her side. The pain was instant, nauseating. Her vision blurred. Her instincts told her to fall back, to retreat, but SEALs didn't retreat. Not when someone's life was on the line. The man smirked, circling her like a cat. "Heard stories about you," he said. "The famous Hawk. Doesn't look like much when she's grounded, does she?" Ava said nothing. She flexed her fingers, but her right hand refused to move. She switched her knife to her left hand, blood dripping down her knuckles. The man swung again. She ducked low, the pipe cutting through the air just inches above her head. She rolled to the side, pain flaring through her ribs, but she stayed silent. Every breath burned. He swung again. This time she caught the pipe with her left hand, twisting it as she drove her knee into his stomach. He grunted but didn't fall. His elbow smashed into her jaw, sending her sprawling back. She coughed blood, spat, and forced herself to her feet. Her right arm screamed in agony. He laughed, picking up a knife from his belt. "You should have stayed out, soldier. We were waiting for you." Behind him, she caught a glimpse of movement, Miles. He was trying to lift his head, eyes blinking open. "Ava," he croaked. That single word reignited something inside her, that fire the Navy couldn't train, the one born from every night she spent under fire, every comrade she'd lost. She tightened her grip on the knife in her left hand. Her pulse slowed, her breathing steadied. Pain is just data. Data helps you win. When he lunged, she sidestepped, twisting her body so that his knife grazed her vest. In a blur of motion, she slammed her forehead into his nose. Blood spattered across her cheek. Before he could recover, she kicked the inside of his knee, snapping it sideways. He fell with a roar, but his pipe came swinging wildly again. It connected with her ribs, knocking her back into a crate. Her vision flashed white, her ears rang, but even through the haze, she smiled. Because she could hear them now, faintly, through her disabled comms, the distant rumble of approaching engines. Her team had found her signal beacon after all. The man stumbled toward her, limping, knife raised. Ava steadied her stance, blood dripping from her mouth. "You broke the wrong arm," she hissed. Then she moved. One strike to the throat, another to the groin. She pivoted on her heel and drove her knee straight into his jaw. The man collapsed, choking, his knife clattering across the floor. She grabbed it with her left hand, twirling it in one clean motion, and drove it into the concrete beside his head, close enough to make him freeze. "Stay down," she growled. Behind her, Miles groaned. Ava dropped to her knees beside him, slicing through the ropes with her knife. His pulse was weak but steady. "You came," he whispered. "Always," she said, lifting him carefully despite the pain radiating from her broken arm. The sound of tires screeched outside, backup finally arriving. But as she looked at the unconscious thug on the floor, a strange calm settled over her. She'd come here to rescue one man, and ended up reminding herself who she was. A SEAL doesn't need two arms to win. She just needs one good reason. The sound of gunfire rolled through the dockyard like thunder. By the time Ava dragged Miles behind a stack of crates, her entire right side throbbed with a pain so deep it felt carved into her bones. Her broken arm hung limply, every breath sharp as glass in her lungs. The warehouse lights flickered, and shouts echoed from the loading bay, reinforcements. They weren't hers. The convoy outside wasn't SEAL extraction, it was them. 2 trucks, maybe 3, packed with armed men. The bald giant she dropped earlier groaned and began crawling for a weapon. Ava kicked him unconscious before he could reach it, blood smearing the floor beneath her boots. Miles coughed, trying to sit up. "You're hurt." "Not important," she cut in, scanning the shadows. She pulled his sidearm from its holster, checked the magazine, half full. "Can you move?" "Barely." "Then stay behind me." Her mind was running faster than her body could handle. She had one working arm, one gun, no comms, and an injured operative to extract through a compound that was rapidly filling with hostiles. By all accounts, it was unwinnable. But Ava Ramirez didn't believe in unwinnable. She crouched low and took a deep breath, forcing her pulse to steady. Pain was information, fear was focus. Every SEAL learned that, but Ava had lived it. The first wave burst through the warehouse doors, 8 men in tactical vests, flashlights cutting through the gloom. She waited until they spread out, searching for movement. Then she moved. Her left hand tightened on the pistol. She fired once, the lead man dropped. Another raised his rifle, but she was already moving sideways, firing again, then ducking behind a crate. Bullets tore splinters through the wood. Sparks danced across the floor. She rolled, grabbed a loose pipe with her boot, and kicked it toward a power junction box on the wall. The metal connected. Snap, and the entire left side of the warehouse plunged into darkness. "Where is she?" someone shouted. The shadows were her element now. She ghosted through the aisles, stepping silently over debris. A man passed just feet from her hiding spot. She slipped behind him, hooked her arm around his neck, and pulled. He went down soundlessly. She took his rifle and 2 grenades. Behind her, Miles was crawling toward cover, clutching his ribs. "Ava, more coming." She glanced up, another group moving in from the far door. She pulled the pin on a flashbang and lobbed it high. The explosion of white light and sound was disorienting even for her, but the screams that followed told her it had done its job. "Move," she barked, grabbing Miles by the collar with her left hand and dragging him toward the side exit. Her broken arm swung uselessly, brushing against the wall, every touch sent lightning through her nerves. They made it to the loading dock when a bullet grazed her shoulder, spinning her halfway around. She ducked, returning fire. 3 shots, 2 hits. The third dropped behind a stack of barrels. She was running out of ammo. From the open dock doors, she could see the black water of the bay glinting in the moonlight. A small patrol boat was moored nearby, not military, but it would float. "Boat," she said. Miles blinked. "You serious? You want to swim?" He didn't argue. But before they could make it 10 steps, the bald giant, the one she'd left bleeding, staggered into view again, his face slick with blood and fury. This time, he wasn't smiling. You should have stayed down, Ava said coldly. He laughed hoarsely, hefting a submachine gun. You should have stayed retired. The weapon barked. Ava threw herself sideways, dragging Miles down. Bullets tore through the air, splintering crates, sending shards flying. Her pistol skidded across the floor, out of reach. The giant advanced, boots heavy on the concrete. One arm, no ammo. End of the line, seal. Ava pushed Miles behind a barrel. Her pulse slowed again, that same deadly calm she'd learned to summon when death was a hair's breadth away. You're right, she said. One arm. She reached for her belt, and pulled a combat knife. The man sneered. You'll need more than that. Not really. He charged, swinging the SMG like a club. She ducked under the swing, pivoted on her heel, and drove the knife into his thigh. He howled and swung again, the butt of the gun connecting with her shoulder. She stumbled but didn't fall. Adrenaline drowned the pain. He grabbed her by the vest, lifting her with brute strength. You don't look so tough now. Her left hand shot up, gripping the back of his neck. She slammed her forehead into his nose with a crack that echoed. Blood exploded across his face. He roared, swinging wildly. She twisted her body and drove her knee into his ribs, the knife still buried in his leg. He staggered, and Ava ripped the blade free, spinning it backward in her palm. One final motion, she plunged it into his side, between the ribs. The giant's eyes went wide. He dropped to his knees, choking on his breath. Ava stood over him, chest heaving. Seals don't need two arms to win, she said quietly. Just one that never quits. He collapsed, unmoving. For a long second, the world was silent except for the hum of the generators and the distant crash of waves. Then, headlights. A convoy rolled into the dockyard, this time, hers. Her team. Ava exhaled in relief as 6 figures in black tactical gear burst through the warehouse doors, weapons drawn. Lieutenant, shouted Chief Daniels, her second in command. We lost your signal. Are you? He stopped short when he saw her arm. Jesus, I've had worse, she muttered, managing a half smile. Carter's injured but alive. We're good. The medics moved in to secure Miles, while Daniels covered her as she finally let herself sit down on a crate. The adrenaline drained away, leaving her lightheaded. Her arm throbbed with every heartbeat. Lieutenant, Daniels said quietly, crouching beside her. You disobeyed orders coming in here alone. She gave a tired smirk. Add it to my file. He chuckled softly. You saved him. Her gaze drifted toward the unconscious bodies littering the floor, then to Miles, who was being loaded onto a stretcher. He caught her eye and gave a faint nod of gratitude before the medics carried him out. Ava's vision blurred. For the first time in years, she felt something deeper than the rush of combat, a quiet pride, raw and human. Daniels handed her a water bottle. You know, you could have waited for backup. And miss all the fun. She rasped, taking a sip. He laughed, shaking his head. You're insane, Hawk. She looked down at her broken arm, at the blood and bruises, and smiled faintly. Maybe, but we got him out. The next morning, at the field hospital, she woke to the steady beep of monitors and the soft hum of distant machinery. Her arm was in a cast, elevated. Miles was in the next bed, sleeping peacefully. A nurse entered quietly. You're lucky, Lieutenant. Another inch and that bone would have torn through the muscle. Ava smirked. Luck had nothing to do with it. The nurse smiled. Then what did? Ava looked toward the window, where the sun was breaking over the horizon, turning the water gold. Training, she said softly. And a promise. The nurse tilted her head. A promise, Ava nodded, that no matter what they break, an arm, a bone, or a rule, I'll always get my people home. Outside, gulls cried over the water. The dockside was quiet again, but the legend of what had happened there, of the one-armed SEAL who fought through pain, blood, and fire, was already spreading through every barracks and training camp. Because every soldier knew what she'd proven that night. A Navy SEAL doesn't win because she's unbreakable. She wins because even broken, she keeps fighting.